Imagine this. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings. This is your house. But is it your home? Hi, I'm Nelson DeMello, and join me as we try to find our home beyond our borders. I don't know. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good take.
I'm telling you, man, you play this game and you're gonna miss the point. You play this game of morality, and I know I'm harping hard on morality. It's been a couple episodes. I'm gonna keep doing it, but it's not in vain, right? Like, I think what's going on in culture right now, why so many people are going back to religion, is because they realize that this subjective, postmodern idea just doesn't work, and everyone's flooding back to morality, and that's all it's gonna be, and you're gonna miss the richness of God's mercy and grace, and you're going to miss the depth of your sin if we're just caught up and stuck on morality, right? I think it's super important that teachers will go deeper and go farther into that. So I'm not saying that morality is not important. I think the easiest way to summarize the idea is morality is good for society, but it's baseless when you are pursuing after God, right? Like, your relationship with God is not anywhere near the dichotomy of morality. And as we continue on, we'll see that it's this gradient of faithfulness, where with people like Judah Smith, he has the perfect example, right? If he cheats on his wife, if he messes up with his wife, lies and gets caught or whatever, he is instantly forgiven, right? He was forgiven before it happened. So there is no consequence. But what's going to happen? So he's forgiven. His wife might not forgive him, might take a really long time to forgive him, right? I love this idea because that's exactly what it is, right? I know, right, that so there's the saying that God sees sin all the same. Therefore, we treat sin equally the same. And I agree with people who say, no, that's completely false. That's so wrong. Because, right, telling a lie and murdering 30 people is a huge difference, right? No, that's going to bring its consequences. That, I think, shows you the level of depravity in your heart. There's levels to it, yes. But I think at the end of the day, flaws are flaws. When the standard is flawlessness, if that's how we're looking at it, if the standard is flawlessness, then any flaw is going to stick out very painfully, right? And so it doesn't matter if you're shattered or just a crack. It's compared to having nothing there, it's visible, it's obvious, right? But going back, so we're in Numbers 11, right? The people are complaining. Well, let's just read the first verse and first few verses maybe. So Numbers 11, it says, "And the people complained in the hearing of the Lord about their misfortunes. And when the Lord heard it, his anger was kindled, and the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outlying parts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and Moses prayed to the Lord that the fire dwindled down." Let's go down to verse 4, and it says, "Now the rabble was among them." Now the rabble that was among them had a strong craving, and the people of Israel also wept again and said, "Oh, that we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt that cost nothing, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our strength is dried up, and there is nothing at all but this manna to look at. So here what do we see? We see a people complaining, right? And as Judah Smith would say, good preaching here. It's good preaching, but it doesn't hit the matter of the truth. The good preaching here is going on a rant about how we should not complain, how should we be thankful, how we should be grateful, and and yada yada, and God hates those who complain and blah blah blah, right? Because we see complaining as in, I guess, adjacent to being an immoral person, I guess. I don't know, maybe of immoral character. I don't know. But I don't know how else to go about this. I mean, look, let's go down to verse 10. Moses heard the people weeping throughout their clans, everyone at the door of his tent. And the anger of the Lord blazed hotly, and Moses was displeased. Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you dealt ill with your servant? And why have you not found favor in your sight, that you lay the burden of all this people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? That you should say to me, carry them in your bosom, as a nurse carries a nursing child to the land that you swore to give their fathers? And where am I to get meat to give to all these people? For they weep before me and say, give us meat that we may eat. I am not able to carry all of this people alone. The burden is too heavy for me. If you will treat me like this, kill me at once. If I find favor in your sight, that I may not see my wretchedness." Now, I don't know whose complaint is more dramatic, right? You have a people that have been taken care of, have seen miracles. Not only have they broke free from Israel or from Egypt entirely from miracles, right? From the 10 plagues to the splitting of the sea, right? Not only that, they are being cared for throughout the desert with this manna, and their clothes grows with them. They have the audacity to be like, "Oh my gosh, we have nothing to eat except for this stupid bread," right? And if we could only go back where we had so much flavor and things that appetize the tongue and the stomach. And then you have Moses wanting to die because he's tired of these people. If we see here, both of them are complaining. Both parties are complaining, right? Except, what's the difference, right? So why is Moses? He's not going to be judged here. So why is Moses not being judged? Why are the Israelites, some of the Israelites, going to be judged? Why is God's anger kindled here? If these two people are seemingly complaining, but there's a difference because the outcome is different, right? And so we see that one wants the past, pre-God, pre-trust, dependence on God. And one is exactly trusting in God's dependence and in God's faithfulness. And so Moses is leaning into God and saying, "God, what do you want me to do? Take care of this. Take care of me. Like, I hate this situation. This is not good," right? So he's having that honest prayer. Right? He's praying earnestly and honestly to God. Like, I hate this. I hate this people. I hate what's going on right now. I hate everything. I hate myself. I just want to die, and you know what? Maybe that's where you are in your life, and that's a totally acceptable prayer to have. Um, and we see that God will meet the needs of everyone, but at the cost of the rebels. And so the rebels, on the other hand, are not necessarily praying to God. They are complaining that they want to go back to their old life. They're saying, "Man, this is too much sacrifice. This isn't fun. This isn't pleasing. This isn't appealing whatsoever. I want to go back." We will see. I think this is something to consider as we go through, but corporate rebellion will always be dealt with harshly. And it's because corporate rebellion can spread like wildfire. Like, it takes a lot of energy to bring about a good culture, right? It doesn't take much to corrupt, to dismantle that good culture. And so, in this narrative of God trying to create a good culture, a people that are faithful through and through, and there are little bursts, right? Little things that come up that that can conflate, that can spread like wildfire. And I think that's important on that end, to understand God's justice and maybe the ideas surrounding why he does what he does. And so, if you're following, if you're with me here, you're seeing that God will punish the Israelites not because they complained, right? But because they want to go back to a life without him. And that's going to affect the people around them, to where everyone's going to want to do that. And so what happens, it's in, well, I guess we'll start in verse 31, just kind of read the whole thing. Then a wind from the Lord sprang up, and it brought quail from the sea and let them fall beside the camp, about a day's journey on this side and a day's journey on the other side, around the camp. And there were 2 cubits above the ground. And the people rose all that day and night and the next day and gathered the quail. Those who gathered least gathered 10 homers, which I think is like 100 liters or something or more. It's like a lot, dude. Like, enough meat for like months. And they spread them out for themselves around the camp. While the meat was yet between their teeth, before it was consumed, the anger of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord struck the people with a very great plague. Therefore, the name of the place was called Kibroth Hatava, because they buried the people who had the craving. From Kibroth Hatava, the people journeyed to Hazeroth, and they remained in Hazeroth. So, yeah, there's also this aspect where, like, some people complained, everyone benefited, and only a few died, right? So there was this, like, judgment of the heart. There was this idea that, like, everyone partook, right? It doesn't say that they didn't, but we also know that not everyone died, because, you know, the story keeps going. And people buried people. So, you know, who buried them? It was the Israelites. So that's that. I think I'm just on the nose, you know, like I made my point. There isn't more to expound, but I do want to go back a little bit, change gears. I want to talk about this interesting thing that happens in between this story. So Moses complains, right? He's complaining, and then God meets his needs. The Lord, in verse 16, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Gather for me 70 men of the elders of Israel, who know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them take their stand with you.'" And then what happens next, right? So they have 70 people. God says, some of the spirit that is in you is going to go to all of them. And they're going to basically figure stuff out for everyone else. They're going to solve the problems so that not all the burden is on you. Cool. That's really cool. But then, so they all go out and they're prophesying and, they're doing their thing. 2 people, though, stay in the tent of meeting. And they're also prophesying. But everyone's done prophesying. I guess the spirit comes back to Moses or whatever the case is. They run out of juice. I don't know. But they're done. And so, but these 2 people, they're still going. And then Joshua is like, "Yo, can you tell them to cut it out?" And I love what, let's just read verse 28. And he says, "And Joshua, the son of Nun, the assistant of Moses, from his youth said, 'My Lord Moses, stop them.' But Moses said to them, 'Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, and the Lord would put his spirit on them.' And then Moses and the elders of Israel returned to the camp." I think this verse is so powerful. Because he doesn't know it, but he has prophesied, and he has he desires what God wills for the future. Right? Like that is how aligned they are. That even in Moses' desire for everyone to be filled with the Spirit and prophesy, is God's desire. And what is cool, right, is as a Christian, we read through Numbers and we get these hints. And we read that and we're like, oh man. Like he's like, "Oh, if only this were the case." And we're like, dude, it is the case. And it's fantastic and it's amazing. Which brings me to this idea that I don't see how people in the Jewish faith can just, not that they should be violent or anything, but how they can agree to disagree with Christians. Because we read this verse and they're like, "Oh yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?" And that's where Jews kind of end their thought process. And we're like, "No, the same spirit that was in Moses is in me." And that's either entirely offensive, right? Like blaspheming, that's foolish, that's making a mockery of their faith, or right, it should provoke a jealousy. And this is what the New Testament, what Paul will talk about. He talks about this in Romans. I know in Romans, I imagine other places as well. But this idea that if Jews were to see us in the Spirit, whether it's prophecy, whether it's just living a wise life, blessed by God, if they can see God's hand in our life, it should provoke them to jealousy. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other argument, but I mean, that's why, oh man, that's why Paul, how would I say this? Paul says that, it's first to the Jews, then to the Gentiles, and it's only given to the Gentiles to provoke the jealousy of the Jews, to bring the Jews back to God, which is, I mean, crazy work. Let's not get into that. I guess we'll get there if I ever do the New Testament as well. But let's move on. Oh my gosh, dude. Let me see. There was something else. Let me check my notes. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I guess what we see as well. We talked about it last week. But the idea that like God's anger was kindled, right? We talked about oh no, we talked about God's immutability, right? The idea that God doesn't change, that God is consistent. He is always himself. He's never besides himself, in a literal sense, in a figurative sense, in every sense. He is entirely himself all the time, and he doesn't stop being himself. He's completely integral. With that being said, again, the way we experience human emotion, we are not ourselves when we are angry. We are not ourselves when we feel envy. We are not ourselves we when we are joyful, when we are sad. We are different people, right? Like there is something that is congruent in all of that. But the thoughts that we have when we're happy are not the thoughts that we have when we're upset, right? When we're angry, we are thinking things that we would not have thought of otherwise. God does not, that doesn't happen with God, right? So when we read, and I think it's easier when we see the original Hebrew, right? Anytime pretty much that that it says that the anger of the Lord was kindled, or God became angry, or whatever the case is, usually the word and the phrase that is used in Hebrew is that his nostrils were flared, right? I think that paints a better picture of how this is anthropomorphized and not the ontological reality of what God is doing and God is feeling and God, why is that better? Well, because we know that God doesn't have a nose, right? He's invisible. He's a spirit, right? Again, he's spirit. So he doesn't have a nose. His nose can't be flared. So we understand, like, if it said his nostrils were flared in the Bible, like, just word for word, we would be like, oh yeah, duh, okay, I understand where you're going with that, right? He's angry, but it's like a metaphor of him being angry. But when it says God's anger was kindled, we think he's angry, like in the sense of he's angry like I'm angry. But that's not the case, right? Because I guess because emotions are intangible things, we believe that they can be attributed to God. And I guess that's the argument here, is because the ancient Hebrew, right, the Hebrew here is that it's a physical metaphor for an ontological reality. There's like more separation, right? And again, so what does it mean for God to be angry here if he's not experiencing the human emotion of anger? And again, we talked about God's jealousy, and we talked about his justice and like his wrath, and how that's like a persistent thing. And like, I guess, and it might be the best way to see it, at least if you have a better example or a metaphor or something, please type it in the chat. I want to learn. But as far as it goes, like, the best thing that I can offer is the way that like a prism reflects a bunch of light, right? And let's say the red light that comes out is anger. That anger is always being reflected, right? If you walk in the direction of the anger, your face is going to be red. You know what I mean? Like if the red is like beaming out this way and I stand in front of it, then that beam is going to hit me. So I'm going to experience that red because I'm in the way of the red, right? So if God doesn't move, God doesn't change, but me as a human experience life, and I'm making choices, and I'm inconsistent, and I'm the uncontrolled variable, then I might find myself in front of lights that can be scary, or I find myself in front of lights that are elated and joyful and whatever. Or like Jeremiah, for example, he probably spent a lot of his time in front of the blue light, right? in metaphorically, like he felt the sorrow of God a lot, right? And Moses felt God's anger a lot. But again, it's this consistent thing it's a consistent, I don't want to say feeling. See, and that's kind of the thing. It's like even in explaining the metaphor, you're using metaphors to explain something. But I think Jonathan Edwards brilliantly puts it all together. Oh my God, I was about to read the Bible as if his words are in the Bible. My notes. Jonathan Edwards says, God condescends to our capabilities. He speaks of it as if he had passions, that we may understand the effects of his holiness. Yeah. So I'll say that one more time. God descends to our capabilities. He speaks of it as if he had passions, that we may understand the effects of his holiness. Right? So what that means is that God's anger wasn't actually kindled, as that would be a change in his state. God opposes unbelief. Their unbelief threatens the covenant and balance of the Israelites. Oh, I see. Yeah, and I guess that's another thing. I don't want to talk about that. I was gonna say like the evolution of hell and stuff like that, consciously, kind of fits the narrative of what's going on behind the scenes. And I mean, this is all speculation, but the idea that ancient Greek, ancient Hebrew had this idea of Sheol, which is just the underworld, like this blanketed, like everyone who dies goes there. And then in Sheol, you have Abraham's bosom, and then you have, the dark, whatever. And so like, it's like if you die, you went to Austin, and then there's the bad parts of Austin and the good parts of Austin, right? And you can kind of mingle your way through whatever. But it's only kind of around Jesus' time that they had this idea of Hades. Or, no, sorry, not Hades, because that's also, Sheol. But this idea of hell and heaven, essentially. This separation, only kind of came around the time Jesus was, like, around his life. And it's almost like as human consciousness evolved to understand, like, to getting to that point, it actually happened, like, in the background, where because Jesus is the judge, right? And he has the gates of hell, and he has he's on the judgment seat. He decides who goes to heaven and hell. This dichotomy of heaven and hell really didn't exist until Jesus died and decided that. Yeah. That's why I don't want to talk about it. Wait, hold up. If at any point in this you said, dang, I never thought about it like that, please subscribe. What are you doing, man? I'm trying to pay my bills. Okay, anyways, let's get back to the serious stuff. All right, see you. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm wrapping up. That's all I got for chapter 11. But I just wanted, like, I'm over talking about, this whole morality thing. It's just, I don't know if I'm shooting myself in the foot here, because, most people would have their, like, 2-3 things that they just talk about every podcast or whatever. And I'm like the complete opposite, where you just get bored and tired of things really quick. But I think it's important, man. And again, I just want to quickly go through why. Because we've had generations before in this country, in the U.S., and we've seen these revivals, right? Where being Christian became this common thing, right? Everyone was Christian. Everyone tried to be moral and all good, right? But it's not sustainable when you think about generational. When you think about the generations, like the kids of this next generation are going to hate Christianity again you know, like if it's just a moral thing. This happened in the 90s, like 80s and 90s. Like hit when when history repeats itself, like when that phrase is, dude, it's such a real thing, and people don't acknowledge and recognize, like, oh, maybe we should try something different. You know, maybe this isn't it. And I don't know how many times we need to go through this thing of Christianity is about morality, be a moral person. And now you have a bunch of parents that are moral and everything, and these kids are like confined and constrained to this morality without knowing God. And they hate God. And then the cycle starts again. This cannot happen. There needs to be a change. There needs to be something new and deeper about this generation's faith that can be sustainable on and on. Like, I think very rarely do we see generations of faith that don't go through, like, at most what you'll see is the prodigal son kind of deal, right? This is me. So when I was growing up, it was that, I mean, and that's the thing. I guess maybe I'm not in a unique place, but maybe, I don't know. My dad was very much this way. But it's to his benefit that he's this way, right? He's a super moral guy. He's disciplined. He does what's right. He's like a soldier / commander, like that. That's just how his brain works, and that's how he does things. I'm I'm everything for me is subjective. I'm the artist. I'm whatever, melancholic, all of that. And so we were at odds, right? Because I had all these rules and all these things, and that's what I was trying to do until I couldn't, until it was literally just an exhausting endeavor for me. And the way I came to Christ, the way that I started pursuing him, the way he became Lord was not in this sense that he was like my commander or anything, but my greatest passion. But there was this time, right, that he that I just didn't have that connection with God, and I hated everything, right? Best case scenario is that, right? Is like, oh, I hate all these rules and da da da, and then I learn, and I'm like, oh, actually, there is benefit, like not even benefit, like there is like this harmony to being obedient and all these things, and just having to go deeper in, and the prodigal son story, right? So now I'm back in my faith. My dad remains in his faith, and that's best or most common, best case scenario is that, right? But there are some people that I've seen that walk it out well because they have a deep understanding of God's grace, and their kids catch on, and they see not hypocritical Christian parents, but human Christians that are trying to walk it out as faithfully as they can. And it's not about the do all the time, but it's about the journey of putting your faith in Christ and your trust in Christ. And if that can't be shown in a household and repeated, then it's going to die in another generation again. Like, this is going to be I don't know how many times America has gone through some kind of revival, some kind of back to church, where the next generation, it's over, And so that's why I harp on it so much. And so that's kind of why I'm in this freaking limbo of, like, I'm over talking about it, in the sense that, like, I don't want to go through the Bible and just prove this thing. I think that's so boring. Like, but at the same time, I know how important it is for me to call you to a deeper faith, to a realer faith, a faith that actually permeates every part of your life, as opposed to a list, like a structure to live your life on. And don't get me wrong, like, you can build your house on this foundation, right? And you can have your framework on this foundation and you will be blessed for it. But at the same time, a house is not a home, right? And so to make it a home, you need to allow Jesus to live in the house and not just have him as your foundation. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, you know. I mean, that's it, guys. I'll see you next time. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about racism a little bit. And yeah, that'll be next time. Guys, also, yeah, comment, please. Help me see things that I don't see. I love learning. And that encouragement would be nice, you know? Yeah, I don't, haters don't really get to me. I'm my biggest hater, but, definitely when I'm doing this, you know, it's just tough to say consistent. Consistency is like something I'm not like, I don't know. I am, but I'm not. Like, I just have zero motivation when there's no fruit, you know? It's like we have dang it, what kind of flower is it? Dude, I have zero clue. It's the ones that like don't need orchids. Yeah. Like indirect sunlight, very little water, and we have it in our house, and it's pretty much dead. It's like it's a weird thing. It's the bottom leaves are green, but it's not blossoming, and I don't think there's like a season for it. And and we water that thing like, you know, once a week or whatever, because that's what you're supposed to do. But it's like dead, you know. That's how it feels like a lot of times. You're like watering a dead plant, just hoping that something will happen. Sorry, I'm laughing so I don't cry. Not 100% true, but yeah, I mean that's what it feels like, you know. I mean, and I feel for people in ministry, bro. Like this is a lot of times what ministry feels like. It's watering a dead plant, and you're just praying to God, like, "Hey, revive this thing for the love of God, for the love of yourself." Oh shoot, that's another thing. Oh no, that's in another chapter. Okay, we'll get there. But how we can turn God's face, at least from our perspective, and yeah, the beautiful thing about that. I am sorry though that I'm like destroying the narrative a little bit by like, oh, Moses said this and da da da, but like in the background, this is actually what's happening. I don't know if that's good or bad. And like, look, this isn't like a fringe thing. Like most Jewish scholars and Christian scholars all agree on this, right? About of God's immutability and all these things. But it's just that, like, I don't know, it ruins. I think it ruins the concept that people have of God, right? Even like God's punishment, understanding that God's not like, he doesn't get off on hurting people. His goal is to protect, right? And so like when we see his wrath and stuff like that, it's a function of his protection, you know. I think that ruins that narrative of like, oh God, the Old Testament God's this monster and da da da. It's like, no man, he's just Mama Bear, and we just see that a lot, you know. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, let's just cut it off. You guys, thank you so much. If you've watched this episode, I really do appreciate it. And yeah, God bless you, man. God bless you for listening to me. Oh my goodness. All right. Have a good day. Have a good night. See ya. Hey guys, thank you so much for going on this journey with me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, and remember, there is more to life, and that is good news. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.